The friendships formed among people growing up in a small community are precious. The passing of time and the rapid growth of southeast Oakland County, which older residents recall as Royal Oak Township, has caused the geographic separation of many neighbors and friends. So the Historical Society gives them an opportunity to get together once a year and recall with pleasure those earlier days and compare notes on children and grandchildren. And with that, this is John Wilson welcoming you to the 50th Annual Royal Oak Historical Society Dinner on People, Places, and Things.
Royal Oak, its story, as told by the people that lived it. We'll walk the streets of yesteryear and relive the days of the horse and buggy when times were much simpler and things moved slower. We'll visit historical buildings and look at age-old artifacts, which will always be a part of Royal Oak after the people move on. We'll observe the city as it has grown and prospered, and then wonder, what will tomorrow bring? To the people, to the places, to the things of Royal Oak.
This is the Historical Society dinner that we're noting tonight, and I have with me one of the real senior members of the Historical Society, been very active in the Historical Society, and that's Owen Perkins Sr. Owen, in addition to the Historical Society, has been very active in the Senior Citizens Group and been president for some 22 years, isn't that right?
22 years, that's right.
And that's located at the church?
That's the church of 7th and Washington.
And taking over and being as active as him is Owen Perkins Jr. We have a display here, and here comes Owen Jr. He is the coordinator for the Historical Society, and didn't you set all of this stuff up?
It was my responsibility as coordinator of historical research. My father had guided me in identifying sites and locations and people and obtaining photographs, and so when we were having our Golden Jubilee in Royal Oak, we took photographs to include in the book, and I went around to those same sites and took more recent pictures of them. And so this display is, in particular, is Main Street Royal Oak, showing then and now.
Okay, can you just take us very quickly on a run-through as to what we're apt to see as we go through the pictures?
Okay. This would be starting at the north end of what would be Main Street, actually way out at 13 Mile Road, where the Orson Starr family has their home, and that's the building, the house that Orson Starr built in 1845, the oldest house in Royal Oak that's now presently owned by the city of Royal Oak. As you go south from there, you come to a place like the Red Run Creek, and the north end of Royal Oak, as it was known, where the trolley turned around. The cemeteries of Royal Oak. Just a little north of there is the windmill that's the Gabler family now owns. It was the Hagelsteins.
When we move up where we can take that in.
Right. And right up here is right here at the north end of Royal Oak is a marker that was put there by the Royal Oak Women's Club to mark the spot where the territorial governor Cass purportedly rested under a tree and looked up onto its branches and said, "This is truly a Royal Oak." Mm-hmm. And so that marker marks the site that eventually became the name for the township, the village, the city, the school district. Also at the north end of the Royal Oak was the Frickwelly Monument Works, and as we go farther south, then we come to like the old Royal Oak High School picture here that the school my father attended as Royal Oak High School and graduated in 1921.
Your dad was mentioning about the mules and the wagon.
Springsteen. That's Springsteen's pair of mules. He also had a creamery just north of there, and he was also a city commissioner.
Yeah. About what time was that? Would that be taken, Owen?
In the 30s.
Well, the latest would be the circa, it says here 1880, so as the people look at these photographs, they can tell about what period of time the actual photograph was taken.
Okay, let's
Now,
move
if we
on
went,
down the
we're
panel.
down at this location, and this photograph is a picture of the First Baptist Church as a Greek cross-style church. And this is the year that the Baptists are celebrating 150 years. And that was one of their churches at just north of the First Street. Now, originally, Sherman Stevens platted this area, the village of Royal Oak, and gave the land for the First Baptist Church and the First Methodist Church. And so First Street was the northernmost street of the city. And as we go farther south, then we're going to the other streets that he named, like Second Street. As we move along here, Dad, we'll see Second Street and Third Street along in here. Second Street, you remember Jacob Erb's store? It was at Second and Main?
Second Main, southeast corner.
Yes, and there's a photograph of that. Jacob Erb was the
This is Hilsinger's house. He's furnished the first electricity for the village of Royal Oak.
and that was at First Street and Main Street. If we go a little farther down here, the pictures depict locations such as at 4th and between 3rd and 4th Street on Main Street. In fact, here's a photograph right here of the old bank building that was changed into the Royal Oak Public Library. And it was at that building that Elizabeth Briggs was the librarian and had a committee meet to start the Royal Oak Historical Society. So that is the founding home of the society.
That's the first City Hall. It's the oldest building in Royal Oak. It's a women's club at the present time. But that served as Township Hall and City Hall, and I worked in that building in 1922. I'm one of 3 people who's worked in all 4 City Halls.
And that's located whereabouts?
That's Pleasant and 4th Street, a women's club.
Right, it's presently at Pleasant and 4th Street, but at that time it was located on 3rd and Main. And that was the site where the Baptist Church had built that building originally. Later it was used as a city hall. And then the Women's Club obtained it and had it moved to another site. So that was the first church for the Baptist Church in 1839 and is the oldest building in Royal Oak.
This is the Royal Theater building in the early 1920s.
And what is it as we move down then Main Street?
Well, we're coming now to 4th and Main. Well, on the east side of Main was the Bernowski's blacksmith shop in the Sullivan block. Jim Sullivan should be here this evening, and his children and grandchildren. And then a little farther south, the pictures show at 4th and Main, the old bank building that became, eventually it was the Royal Oak Savings Bank building, then the Wayne Oakland Bank building, now First of America.
That's really a landmark for Royal Oak, right in this.
It was a very nice building that still is kept up in good shape. Then other photographs here show the trolley as it went through Royal Oak in up until about in the 40s, but those pictures depict it back in the 1800s. A famous corner in Royal Oak probably was at 4th and Main on the northeast corner. This little photograph right here shows that Yipe Saloon was on the corner, then George Dondero's Hay, Straw, and Feed Store. George Dondero was the first mayor of Royal Oak and Board of Education president, and you remember George? What did he do for you?
George Dondero furnished all my money to go to college. When I wanted money, I just told him, and he first said, when we got married, the year after I got out of college, he was still owing $1,000, but we paid every penny back.
So that's wonderful.
George,
the Herman's Bakery is the oldest building in that block, and it's the only original building left.
It was Gus Dondero's bakery. Herman worked for him, and today Richard Herman, his grandson, delivered the pies for the banquet tonight. So we're eating Herman's Bakery pies tonight.
Yeah, great.
Now if we go further south here, watch your step there, Dad. Fire truck up here at the old fire station at 5th and Main. My dad can tell you a story about that because
that used to be the fire hall, and the first job I had is tell me to go and drive the fire truck. I never knew how to drive even. But I directed in and out of the garage and around the block and thank goodness we didn't have a fire.
And that's the first fire truck up there in the left-hand corner?
That's the DPW building there.
At least one of the early trucks. Now, if we go a little further down in the pictures, you see a photograph of Mellon Wright Lumber Company with their horse-drawn wagons to haul lumber. And up the top picture, or the third picture down here, was the old Railroad Exchange Hotel. That people came from all around to this hotel to stay overnight until the train came through. It was Sherman Stevens who founded Royal Oak that also founded the Detroit and Pontiac Railroad, the first railroad in Michigan.
St. Mary's Catholic Church at 5th and Main. And when there's a fire, somebody went there and rang the bell, and then the volunteers ran to the fire truck
For the fire system, for the fire alarm?
Yeah.
Now, on the east side, John Wilson, this John Wilson, told me about, when he worked for the Bell Telephone Company, that the first long-distance telephone line in Michigan came from Detroit to Royal Oak to Lewis Stores General Store.
That's correct.
And so we have that distinction. Then, of course, what would be the last poster for this particular series, going south on Main from the Star House at 13 Mile Road to Woodward, we have the famous Detroit Zoological Park sign on the Royal Oak Water Tower. And my father...
I was the inspector on the 4-foot water main that came from Detroit to Royal Oak.
Had to go through the pipe on the inside to inspect the seams of the pipe.
On Sundays, I go through it on a board with roller skates on, push myself through.
A board with roller skates on?
So you couldn't stand up, you see, it was only 4 feet.
Had to lay down on the board like the mechanics do today to get under cars. He invented his own little board to go through that pipe. And the last photograph probably we make mention of in the upper right-hand corner there was at Lincoln and Main, on Lincoln, but Lincoln and Main, which was 8th Street at the time, was the oak planing mill. And there were many people who came from from Romeo, Michigan, to Royal Oak, including the Prignitz family, who owned this mill, to work in Royal Oak. And it was because the Prignitz family came to Royal Oak that Freeman A. Perkins, my grandfather, my father's father, came to Royal Oak, and his picture is in that photograph.
Well, that's been a real quick tour, both you, Mr. Perkins. Thank you very much for spending the time with us. And Owens, another super job that you've done for the Historical Society.
Glad you could be here tonight.
Thank you. I have with me Mark Bibby, the president of the Historical Society for 1988, and has done an outstanding job, as all the presidents have. Mark, you have some big shoes to fill. How has your year been?
Our year's been really good. We've planned a real nice dinner here. There'll be about 400 people attending, which is our membership number. And the money that's raised here will go to the Historical Commission for the City of Royal Oak, and then in turn that gets turned over to renovate some of the houses that the Historical Commission owns.
What has been your biggest challenge for this year?
One of our biggest challenges will be there's some block grant funds that are going to be used through the city to renovate some of the homes. So it's going to be real interesting to see how far we get in renovating those homes.
I think that the Historical Society has done an outstanding job through the years, and on behalf of Royal Oak and all of its citizens, we want to be sure and express our appreciation and thanks to you and all of the members of the Historical Society for the outstanding job that they've done for the community.
Well, Royal Oak has a very rich heritage, and it's very nice to work with all these people there. They're real nice, and it's very interesting how the history of Royal Oak has evolved.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mark Bibby, the president of the Royal Oak Historical Society.
Thank you.
At the Royal Oak Historical Society, one of the exhibits is kind of the story of George Dondero. And we have with us his son, Bob Dondero, who's going to take us on a pictorial tour of the life and times of George Dondero. Bob?
Well, I'm not going to go through his entire lifespan, but we do have a row of pictures here from the time he was 10 years old up to the time of graduation from high school, and when he graduated from the Detroit College of Law in 1910, and all the way up through his lifetime in Congress, which goes up to the time of his death when he was at the age of 84 in 1968. At the crowning glory of his time in Congress, was the passage of the St. Lawrence Seaway Bill, which he spearheaded in Congress, and he was chairman of the Public Works Committee at the time. He'd been working on that for 20-some years. Going back, we have here the bell that he pushed, which started the telephone dial system in Royal Oak in 1949. And I think Jack might remember that. You were part of the telephone system at the time, weren't you, Jack Wilson? We'll go on back here now to the time when he first came to Royal Oak in 1899 to go to high school. And this would be his diploma from the Royal Oak Union School from when he graduated from high school. He then became a village clerk in Royal Oak, and about 1921 he was chairman of the charter for the city of Royal Oak and was elected its first mayor in 1922.
At the Royal Oak Historical Dinner, we're blessed to have a display and help commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Royal Oak Baptist Church. We have with us the chairman of that celebration for the church, Lois Lance, who is going to tell us and show us some of the items that are here displayed. Lois, first, I see right in your hand, you've got the, is that the historical marker that was dedicated?
Yes, this is a picture of the marker that was dedicated last Sunday in front of our church. And actually, the text of the marker is pretty much the story of the church, which was organized in January 1839 by 20 people, and 10 of the 20 were baptized in the Red Run Creek in February 1839. And as our minister said, maybe that's why a lot of people became Methodists, because they would have had an outdoor baptism. The Baptists built the first church in Royal Oak, and this first model is a model of that church, which was on Main Street between 2nd and 3rd. And then several years later, in 1876, should we move across here? Okay. They built a model of this church, which was always known as the Greek Cross Church, and was really a landmark of the community because everybody knew the unusual shaped church. Then when this one was deteriorated and they tore it down, they decided they couldn't afford a big church, and they put up this little building called the Tabernacle. And the Tabernacle was also a prominent building in the community for about, 3 years before we built the new brick sanctuary. Then in 1964, which you'll see the picture over here, we tore down that church and built our new church, which is on the same site. We've always been on Main Street for 150 years.
That's really a remarkable passage of time and development as far as churches go, Lois. How long have you been a member of the church?
Well, I hate to admit it in a way, and yet I'm proud to say that I have been a member for 61 years this year.
That's outstanding, and we're very proud of the First Baptist Church in Royal Oak, and we want to thank you very much for being here and talking to us about the display. And congratulations to the First Baptist Church of Royal Oak on their 150th anniversary.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to tell people about it. Thank you.
Hi, all of you know me as Owen A. Perkins. Owen Adorable, right? I'm coordinator of historical research for the Historical Society, and I'm charged with the responsibility of carrying out the objects of the Society. Those are listed in that little 12-page flyer that you have. I'm here to relate to you what I and other members of the Society have accomplished since we last met. One is that Society history that each of of you have provided as a glimpse into a book forthcoming that my son and I are working on, Royal Oak, Michigan, since the early years. And this little blurb is from the section on the history of the Historical Society. It gives you a view of the beginnings, the original committee person to start the society, Elizabeth B. Briggs, Miss Briggs, the place where it was held at the Royal Oak Public Library on southwest corner of 3rd and Main, which later was prior to that was a bank building, and now is owned by the First National Bank of Royal Oak. And there's a glimpse about her life, and the bank, and the librarians. Also, it indicates something about the charter members. A list of those are given. We will be giving an award to one of those charter members that is here with us tonight, who was here 50 years ago, or was at the first Historical Society dinner. The hat I'm wearing was worn by Ferris Gardner at the first Historical dinner at the Diana restaurant. Also, it indicates something about the presidents that have been presidents of the Historical Society, and enumerates Dr. Morrison. Something about him. The other presidents, we hope, will be fully included in the forthcoming book, and also something about those who are officers and directors of the society. So far, there's 84 pages in my computer on the history of just the society, and you have 12 of those pages in hand with photographs. There's a map of the city businesses. Let's see, it was in the display on this side of the display rack back there in a frame. And each of you, at least for each family, there is one on the back right table. As you go out this evening, you may have one as a gift from the society. They're holding it up at the back of the room, what it looks like when it's framed, my own personal frame map. So take one that's rolled up, or roll your own, put a rubber band around it, take it home and put it up, or frame it, or pin it up in your child or grandchild or great-grandchild's bedroom. Also, supported by the Royal Oak Schools, the Royal Oak History Education Packet being put together in its final stages by the coordinator, Ellie Hope, who's an Historical Society member. Ellie, are you here tonight? Stand up, Ellie. Yes. And Skip Pope. Skip's not here tonight, but the two of them from Upton School, teachers at Upton School, are putting together 50 packets about the history of Royal Oak for the school children of Royal Oak. Bob Dondero supplied many of the photographs that they're using, and Bob's a member of the society, and I assisted in reading the copy for the historical accuracy and supplied them with 50 of those maps to be included for teachers to put up on their bulletin board. Teachers, administrators, school board members representing the Board of Education this evening. Stan Harris was supposed to be here. Oh, here he is. Look, stand up. I didn't see you the first time. Stan's here around the corner, so he's representing the Board of Education this evening. I know there are many teachers, support personnel, former school teachers. If anybody is here who was a school teacher, is a school teacher, was some type of support personnel for the school district administration, custodial staff, engineering staff, Board of Education, or anything, raise your hand and let's see who you are that are here tonight. Lots of educators here. Excellent. Yeah, you're here. If you're one of those. There are people here tonight that some people don't even think they're here tonight because there's an asterisk beside the name of one person as being deceased as a past president. He's a past president, but he's here tonight, and we'll allude to him in a few minutes. But he's here. He let me know it. Also, the Baptist Church is celebrating 150th anniversary this year, headed by Lois Lance, who is an Historical Society member. Lois, where are you? Stand up, Lois. They had a state historical site marker dedicated last Sunday. Historical Society President Mark Bibby was there at the ceremony and represented the society with appropriate remarks and presented the church with a picture of the church taken by me in 1973, and it's on display back at the Baptist display there. I'd like to thank Lois and her committee for her excellent display this evening. Be sure to look at it. Mark Bibby has a letter that he'd like me to read from Lois Lance to the Royal Oak Historical Society. May 17, 1989, Royal Oak Historical Society, Mr. Mark Bibby, President. Dear friends, on behalf of the congregation of the First Baptist Church of Royal Oak, we thank you for your participation in the ceremony dedicating our State of Michigan historical marker. Thank you also for the beautiful photograph of our church taken by Owen Perkins given to us by the Society. It will be placed with the other treasured mementos of this special year, marking the 150th anniversary of the founding of our congregation. Yours very truly, First Baptist Church of Royal Oak, Lois Lance, Mrs. Donald Lance, Chairman of the 150th Anniversary Committee. Thank you, Lois. Also, St. John's, Jim Carnegie, where are you? Hiding in the kitchen, probably doing pots and pans. And his wife, Carol Sprague, and Terry Margolis were the ones responsible for the setup of all these tables, and putting the paper on the tables and all the chairs, and worked in the kitchen and so forth. And this is the 31st year that the St. John's Episcopal Church has hosted the historical dinner.
In 1819, after sleeping under the branches of a huge oak near the present intersection of Main Street, Crooks, and Rochester Roads, Governor Lewis Cass of the Michigan Territory recrawled the British tree and named the tree the Royal Oak. Royal Oak, both the township and the city derive their names from that act. In 1937, 50 acorns were brought from Royal Oak, England, and planted in the Detroit Zoological Park. About 10 years later, the trees were transplanted in Memorial Park located at 13 Mile and Woodward. There they stand today.